Frost Hollow, Colorado Territory, winter of
What troubles you, my
1885.
dear?
The gunshot
You
echoed
seem
through the
so
howling
distant.
blizzard like thunder trapped in a canyon. Sheriff Colton Granger's breath clouded before him as he pressed his back against a frost-crusted pine. His Colt single-action army, 45, drawn and ready. The walnut grip worn smooth from years of use. Blood darkened the sleeve of his coat where a bullet had grazed his shoulder, steam rising from the wound in the bitter cold. Three members of the Blackwater gang lay dead in the snow behind him. Two more waited ahead, hidden somewhere in the swirling white. The Morgan horses' nervous whinnies carried through the storm, the animals sensing what their masters could not. Death rode with Colton Granger. "You can't kill us all, Iron Sheriff," a voice called out, nearly lost in the wind. Colton's jaw tightened beneath his frost-coated beard. His eyes, gray as gunmetal, scanned the tree line ahead. He pivoted from behind the tree, firing twice in rapid succession. The Colt bucked in his hand, its familiar recoil an extension of his arm. A scream pierced the air. One more down, one to go. The final shot came from behind, tearing through Colton's coat and burning across his ribs. William Blackwater himself, the gang's leader, had circled around. Colton fell to one knee in the snow, turning to face his attacker. But the outlaw was already disappearing into the white void, his laughter carried away by the wind. "Next time, Sheriff," the voice called back. "I'm saving you for last." Colton holstered his weapon, pressing his hand against the fresh wound. The Blackwater gang would live another day, and so would he, though some in Frost Hollow would call that a mixed blessing. The train whistle cut through the evening air as Colton rode back into town, his horse's hooves breaking through the crusted snow. The townsfolk who saw him coming stepped back into doorways or turned their gaze away. Not from the blood on his coat, they'd seen that before, but from the coldness in his eyes, the kind of emptiness that made mothers pull their children closer. Frost Hollow had once been just another mining town carved into the Colorado wilderness. Now it was a growing community with a bank, a schoolhouse, and dreams of connecting to the Transcontinental Railroad. But dreams required order, and order required men willing to enforce it. As Colton dismounted near the station, tying his Appaloosa to the post, he noticed her. A woman stood alone on the platform, her thin cream-colored dress visible beneath an inadequate coat. In her gloved hands, she clutched a small leather suitcase, knuckles white with cold or fear or both. She scanned the empty street with increasing desperation, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. Colton would have walked past, another day, another stranded traveler, but then he saw the scars just visible above her glove, thin white lines circling her wrist, the kind that came from ropes or chains, the kind his Hannah had carried to her grave 4 years ago. Station Master Jenkins approached nervously. "Sheriff, this lady's been waiting 6 hours for someone who ain't coming." "Name?" Colton asked, voice rough from cold and disuse. "Lucy Montgomery," she answered, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I was to meet James Harrington." Colton's hand instinctively moved to his holster. James Harrington, one of William Blackwater's known aliases. "Ma'am," he said, measuring each word, "there is no James Harrington in Frost Hollow. Not by that name anyway." Something in her eyes shifted. Not surprise, but confirmation of a fear long suspected. "You're coming with me," Colton said, not a request, but a command. The townsfolk watched silently as he led her toward the sheriff's office, curious whispers following in their wake. Inside the small jailhouse, the iron stove's heat barely reached the corners of the room. Lucy sat stiffly in a wooden chair, while Colton poured himself a measure of whiskey, not bothering to offer her any. "Where are you from?" he asked, cataloging her appearance. Mid-20s, educated by her speech, hands that showed both refinement and surprising calluses. Missouri originally, she replied. Most recently from a field hospital near Topeka. Colton paused, glass halfway to his lips. You're a nurse. Was, she corrected, during the war. Without asking permission, she stood and moved toward him, eyes fixed on the bloodstain spreading across his coat. You're wounded, twice. Colton stepped back. It's nothing. It's infection waiting to happen, she countered. I've seen men die from less. Before he could object further, she was already rolling up her sleeves, revealing more of those thin scars circling both wrists. I need hot water, clean cloth, and whatever whiskey you can spare for the wounds. Something in her commanding tone made him comply, though he kept his hand near his gun. Trust came rarely to Colton Granger and never on first meetings. When she peeled back his coat and shirt to reveal the wounds, her touch was clinical, efficient. The sting of alcohol-soaked cloth made him inhale sharply, but he didn't flinch. You've been shot before, she observed, not a question. More times than I care to count, he answered. Enough to know these are just scratches. The shoulder's clean through, she said, focused on her work. The side is worse. Bullet took skin with it. Her fingers worked with practiced precision, cleaning, disinfecting, wrapping. You need stitches. Later, he dismissed. First, you're going to tell me why you're really here and what you know about James Harrington. Lucy's hands stilled. For the first time, fear showed plainly on her face. Sheriff Granger, she said quietly, if I tell you everything, you'll either arrest me or think I'm insane. Try me, he replied. I've seen enough insanity for 10 lifetimes. She took a deep breath. James Harrington is William Blackwater, and I'm here because he's planning to rob your bank. I came to warn you. Colton's expression didn't change, but his hand moved closer to his Colt. And how exactly would you know that? Lucy's eyes met his, unflinching despite the tremor in her voice. Because 6 months ago, I was his prisoner. I was the one who patched up his men when your bullets found them. The ride to Colton's cabin was silent and tense. With no room at the boarding house, or more accurately, no willingness to rent to a woman with a suspicious story, Colton had reluctantly offered Lucy the spare room in his home. Not from kindness, but necessity. If what she claimed was true, he needed her where he could watch her. The cabin stood a mile from town, sturdy logs chinked with mud and straw against the brutal Colorado winters. As they approached, a small face appeared in the window, a little girl with solemn eyes, then quickly vanished. My daughter, Colton said, the first personal information he'd volunteered. Emma, she doesn't talk much. Not anymore. Inside, the cabin was spare but orderly. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, its embers glowing faintly. Simple furniture, well-maintained weapons mounted carefully on racks. A home maintained by a soldier, not a homemaker. Emma stood in the doorway to her room, a one-armed doll clutched to her chest. 6 years old, with dark hair hastily braided, wearing a woolen dress that had seen better days. Emma, this is Miss Montgomery, Colton said gruffly. She'll be staying in your mother's sewing room for a few days. The child's eyes widened slightly at the mention of her mother, but she remained silent, studying Lucy with an intensity unusual for one so young. Hello, Emma, Lucy said softly, crouching to the girl's level. You can call me Lucy if you like. Emma didn't respond, only retreated into her room, closing the door with careful deliberation. Colton led Lucy to a small room off the main living area. A narrow bed, a chest, a rocking chair, and everywhere, the lingering presence of the woman who once occupied it, half-finished needlework still in its hoop, a shawl draped across the chair. My wife, Colton explained, his voice hard as iron, won't be needing it anymore. He left Lucy standing alone among the ghosts of his past, her small suitcase clutched in hands that now trembled visibly. Whatever courage had carried her to Frost Hollow seemed suddenly inadequate for what lay ahead. That night, Lucy woke to the sound of boots on wooden floors. Colton, restless, patrolling his own home like a fortress. Through the thin door, she heard him pause outside Emma's room, listen, then continue his circuit. When the footsteps receded, Lucy rose silently. Moonlight spilled through the small window, illuminating the sparse room. Her nurse's instinct to explore, to understand, led her to the main room where a photograph sat on the mantel. A woman with kind eyes held a small child, Emma, much younger, smiling. Beside them stood Colton, almost unrecognizable without the hardness that now defined him. That was taken 3 weeks before Hannah died. Lucy startled, turning to find Colton in the shadows, his hand resting on his holster. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I couldn't sleep." "Most can't. Their first night here," he said. "Too quiet after the city, or too loud when the wolves start." Lucy studied him in the moonlight, this man who seemed carved from the same mountains surrounding them. "Sheriff Granger," she said carefully, "I didn't come here by accident. I've been tracking the Blackwater gang since I escaped. They killed a family in Kansas, robbed 2 banks in Nebraska, and now they're coming here." Colton remained still, his expression unreadable. "Why Frost Hollow?" he finally asked. "Dozen bigger towns with bigger banks within a week's ride." Lucy held his gaze. "Because you're here. William has a particular hatred for you. This isn't just about money." "It never is," Colton replied, his hand dropping from his weapon. "Get some sleep, Miss Montgomery. Tomorrow you're going to tell me everything you know about Blackwater. Every man in his gang, every weapon, every habit. If he's coming for Frost Hollow, he's coming for a war." Morning brought harsh light and harsher realities. Over a sparse breakfast, Lucy recounted her captivity, kidnapped from the field hospital where she worked, forced to treat the gang's wounded, kept in chains between patients. "Blackwater isn't just an outlaw," she explained, as Emma listened silently from her corner. "He thinks he's building something, a kingdom of sorts. He recruits men who enjoy cruelty." "How did you escape?" Colton asked, cleaning his Colt methodically on the table, each piece laid out with military precision. "Laudanum in their whiskey," Lucy said, a hint of grim satisfaction in her voice. "Not enough to kill, just enough to slow them down. I took a horse and rode east for 2 days straight." Colton reassembled his revolver with practiced hands, the mechanism clicking into place. "And now you're here warning his next target." "I tried warning the sheriff in Clearwater," Lucy said bitterly. "He didn't believe me until it was too late. 11 people died." A knock at the door interrupted them. Urgent, heavy. Colton motioned Lucy and Emma toward the back room, drawing his weapon as he approached the entrance. Deputy Hayes stood on the porch, his young face pale beneath his hat. "Trouble in town, Sheriff. Marcus Wilson's calling an emergency town meeting. Says it's about you." Colton's expression darkened. Marcus Wilson, the banker, the self-appointed pillar of Frost Hollow society, the man who'd been trying to remove Colton from office since the shooting last year. "Stay here," Colton ordered Lucy and Emma. "Bar the door after I leave." As he mounted his horse, Lucy called after him. "Sheriff, Wilson's bank. It's the target. Be careful who you trust." Colton nodded once, then spurred his horse toward town, unaware of the eyes watching from the tree line, or that his greatest battle in Frost Hollow was just beginning. The town hall was packed when Colton entered, conversations dying as he moved through the crowd. Marcus Wilson stood at the front, immaculate in his tailored suit, his mustache perfectly waxed. "Ah, Sheriff Granger," Wilson announced, false cordiality dripping from every word. "So good of you to join us. We were just discussing the disturbing reports of gunfire north of town yesterday. More bodies for our cemetery, I understand." Colton stood at the back, thumbs hooked in his belt. "Blackwater gang members, 3 of them. Would have been more if I'd had better light." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Blackwater gang's reputation preceded them. And this is precisely my concern, Wilson continued. Sheriff Granger's violent methods are attracting violent men to our peaceful community. First, that regrettable incident with the horse thief last year. Now this. You preferred when I asked outlaws politely to stop robbing and killing? Colton responded, his quiet tone carrying more menace than a shout. I prefer law enforcement that doesn't endanger every citizen of Frost Hollow, Wilson retorted. We've received intelligence that the Blackwater gang is specifically targeting our town because of you, Sheriff. Your personal vendetta is putting all of us at risk. Colton's eyes narrowed. What intelligence? Wilson smiled thinly. Let's just say I have banking connections across 3 territories. Word travels. He turned to address the assembled townsfolk. I move that we temporarily relieve Sheriff Granger of his duties until this threat has passed, for the safety of all. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Few loved Colton Granger, but all feared what might happen without him. And who would you suggest take my place? And Colton asked. You, with your banker's hands that have never held anything more dangerous than a ledger? Wilson's face flushed. Deputy Hayes is more than capable. Hayes is 19, Colton cut him off. Brave boy, but he's never faced men like Blackwater. Perhaps that's the point, Wilson snapped. Men like Blackwater weren't coming here until you made this personal. A heavy silence fell over the room. Colton scanned the faces before him. Merchants, miners, farmers. Good people, most of them, but not fighters. Not like him. It became personal, Colton said, his voice suddenly deadly quiet. When William Blackwater put a bullet in my wife's heart 4 years ago, when he made my daughter watch her mother die. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Even Wilson seemed momentarily stunned. This isn't about badges or authority, Colton continued. Blackwater's coming regardless. The only question is whether you want someone standing between him and your families who knows how to stop him. Without waiting for a response, Colton turned and walked out, the crowd parting before him like water around stone. Lucy was waiting on the porch when Colton returned, rifle in hand. She lowered it when she recognized him. You know how to use that? He asked, dismounting. Not as well as you, she admitted, but well enough. My father taught me before the war. Said no woman should be defenseless. Inside, Emma sat at the table, carefully drawing on a piece of paper. She didn't look up when they entered, focused intently on her work. The town meeting? Lucy asked. Wilson's trying to remove me? Colton replied, hanging his coat. Claims he has information about Blackwater targeting Frost Hollow. That's impossible, Lucy said. Unless, her face paled. Unless he's working with them. Colton's eyes narrowed. Banker consorting with outlaws? That's a serious accusation. The Blackwater gang doesn't just rob banks, Lucy explained urgently. They're after something bigger, land, influence. William once boasted they had men in every territory, respectable men who could move money, buy property, create legitimate fronts. Before Colton could respond, Emma approached, holding out her drawing. A crude but recognizable sketch of 3 people holding hands. A tall man, a woman, and a small girl between them. Lucy accepted it with gentle hands. It's beautiful, Emma. Is this your family? Emma nodded, then pointed to the woman in the drawing, then to Lucy. Her meaning couldn't have been clearer. Emma, Colton said sharply, Miss Montgomery is just visiting. She's not staying. The child's face fell, but she didn't cry. Instead, she retreated to her room, shoulders slumped in silent disappointment. She misses her mother, Lucy said softly. We all do, Colton replied, turning away. But pretending won't bring Hannah back. That evening, as Colton inventoried his ammunition and weapons at the kitchen table, Lucy sat mending Emma's torn dress by the fire, her needle flashing in the firelight. Why did you really come to Frost Hollow? Colton asked suddenly. Lucy's hand stilled. I told you. To warn you. You crossed 3 territories, risked recapture, all to warn a town you've never seen about a man who already tried to kill you once. Colton's eyes bored into hers. There are easier ways to be a good Samaritan, Miss Montgomery. Lucy set down her sewing, matching his stare. When I escaped, I stole something more valuable than a horse, Sheriff. I took William's journal. Names, contacts, plans. She lowered her voice. There's a silver deposit on your property, the largest in the territory, worth more than $100,000. Enough to buy influence all the way to the governor's office. Did you know that? Colton's expression revealed nothing, but his hand tightened on the rifle he was cleaning. No, he said finally, but Wilson might. He's been trying to buy my land for months. A crash from outside sent both of them diving for cover, Colton extinguishing the lamp in one fluid motion. A rock had shattered the front window, a note wrapped around it. In the dim firelight, Colton read the message, his face hardening to granite. Your wife begged before she died. The girl won't get the chance. Dawn broke cold and clear over Frost Hollow. In the sheriff's office, Colton laid out maps of the town and surrounding wilderness, marking positions, sight lines, potential approaches. They'll come from the north, Lucy said, pointing to the ridge overlooking the town. William always sends scouts first, 2 or 3 men to assess defenses. How many in total? Colton asked, checking the action on his Winchester 73 rifle, the brass gleaming in the early light. 12 last I knew. Maybe more now. Lucy traced the main street on the map. The bank is here, but they won't just rob it and leave. William will want to make a spectacle. Public executions, burning buildings. He wants people to remember. Colton nodded grimly. They will. Just not the way he thinks. Deputy Hayes entered, hat in hand. No one from the town meeting is willing to help, Sheriff. Wilson's convinced them it's suicide to stand against Blackwater. He's right, Colton replied, loading cartridges into his belt. For them, it would be. You should stay clear too, Hayes. With respect, sir, I took an oath, the young man said, standing straighter. So did I, Colton said, to protect this town. That includes keeping fools from getting themselves killed needlessly. He turned back to the maps. Go home to your mother, Hayes. That's an order. After the crestfallen deputy left, Lucy studied Colton with new eyes. You're protecting him. He's a good kid, Colton said. Deserves a chance to become a good man. That won't happen if he's dead by sunset. Lucy moved closer, her voice urgent. You can't face them alone. Even you can't stop 12 gunmen. Watch me. Throughout the day, Colton prepared the town, not with men, but with strategy. Tripwires across alleyways connected to shotgun triggers, set to fire at ankle height. Kerosene barrels positioned at key intersections, ready to be ignited. Rifle positions established on rooftops with clear fields of fire. By mid-afternoon, he returned to the cabin where Lucy had turned the main room into a field hospital. Bandages prepared, instruments boiled, laudanum measured into careful doses. You're expecting casualties, she observed as Colton checked his weapons one final time. I'm expecting reality, he corrected. Take Emma into the root cellar when shooting starts. There's a trap door under the rug, well hidden, 3 feet down, 10 feet across, stocked with food and water for a week. What about you? Lucy asked. Colton didn't answer, instead kneeling before Emma, who watched with solemn eyes. You mind, Miss Lucy, he told her. Stay quiet, stay hidden, like our game. The child nodded, clutching her doll tighter. Colton reached into his pocket, removing a small wooden figurine, a horse, carefully carved. I made this for your birthday next month, he said, placing it in her small hand. Just in case I'm not here to give it to you then. Emma's lip trembled, but she took the horse, then unexpectedly threw her arms around her father's neck. Colton stiffened, then slowly returned the embrace, his calloused hand cradling the back of her head. Over Emma's shoulder, his eyes met Lucy's. No words passed between them, but an understanding did, a promise to protect what mattered most. The Blackwater gang arrived with the setting sun, 12 riders emerging from the tree line like shadows breaking free from darkness. They formed a line at the edge of town, rifles gleaming in the dying light. Colton stood alone in the middle of Main Street, his duster moving slightly in the cold breeze, Colt revolver holstered at his side. From the riders, one man moved forward, tall with a black hat and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. William Blackwater himself, leader of the most feared gang in 3 territories. "Iron Sheriff," he called, his voice carrying in the winter air. "Still breathing, I see." "For now," Colton replied evenly. "You're trespassing in my town, Blackwater." William laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Your town? Last I checked, towns belong to the living. And you're already a dead man walking." His eyes narrowed. "Where is she?" "Who?" "Don't play dumb, Granger. The nurse. My nurse." William's hand rested casually on his holstered pistol. "She took something of mine. I want it back." "Haven't seen any nurse," Colton said. "Just a lot of unwanted visitors who need to leave before people start dying." "People are definitely going to die today," William agreed, scanning the empty street. "Starting with you. Then I'm going to find that pretty little girl of yours." His smile revealed teeth filed to points. "Like mother, like daughter." Colton's expression never changed, but something shifted in his eyes. A coldness so profound it made even William hesitate. "I survived Gettysburg with nothing but a knife after my regiment was cut down," Colton said quietly. "Death and I are old friends." His hand hovered near his Colt. "Question is, are you ready to make his acquaintance?" For 3 heartbeats, neither man moved. Then, faster than seemed possible, both drew. The first shot echoed like thunder down the empty street. In the next 90 seconds, Frost Hollow became a vision of hell. Colton's first bullet caught William in the shoulder, spinning him backward. The gang opened fire, bullets splintering wood and shattering glass as Colton dove for cover behind a water trough. The tripwires did their work as riders charged forward. Horses tumbling, men thrown. Colton's rifle barked methodically from his position, each shot finding a target. 4 down in the first minute, but return fire kept him pinned, bullets chewing the wood inches from his head. Somewhere, William was shouting orders, reorganizing his men. Flanking movements began, outlaws using buildings for cover, working their way around. Colton triggered the first trap, a suspended net of mining tools that crashed down on 2 advancing men. Their screams cut short as metal met flesh. 6 down. 6 remained. A bullet grazed Colton's temple, hot blood running into his eye. Another tore through his left arm. Still he fired, reloaded, fired again. Mechanical, precise. The soldier who'd survived Gettysburg emerging once more. Back at the cabin, Lucy heard the gunfire erupt, distant but unmistakable. She hurried Emma toward the hidden cellar door. "Remember what your father said," she whispered. "Stay quiet, stay." The front door exploded inward. Marcus Wilson stood in the doorway, a shotgun in his manicured hands. "Where is it?" he demanded, eyes wild. "The journal. The map to the silver deposit." Lucy pushed Emma behind her. "There's no journal here." Wilson advanced, shotgun raised. "Don't lie to me. I've worked too hard, planned too carefully." His veneer of civilization had vanished entirely. "Blackwater and I had a deal. He gets the bank, I get the silver rights. After the unfortunate death of our sheriff, of course." "You won't get away with this," Lucy said, backing away. "Even if Colton falls, people will know what you did." Wilson laughed bitterly. "People believe what men with money tell them to believe. Now where is the damn journal?" In the second, Wilson's attention wavered. Lucy lunged for the rifle propped by the door. His shotgun roared, the blast missing her by inches, splintering the wall behind. She rolled, came up with the rifle, and fired in one fluid motion. Wilson staggered backward, a look of genuine surprise crossing his face as he looked down at the spreading red stain on his fine suit. He collapsed to his knees, then fell forward onto the cabin floor. Shaking, Lucy turned to find Emma, but the child was gone. The front door stood open, small footprints leading into the snow toward town, toward the gunfire, toward her father. In town, Colton was losing ground and blood. 4 outlaws still standing, including William, who now directed the assault from the cover of the bank porch. Bullets had found Colton twice more, leg and side, neither fatal but both debilitating. He'd retreated to the church, its stone walls offering better protection than the wooden buildings. But he was running out of ammunition, options, and time. A new sound cut through the gunfire, a high, clear child's voice calling, "Papa!" Colton's blood ran cold. Emma stood in the middle of the street, her small figure silhouetted against the snow, searching desperately for her father. William spotted her first. His face split into a predatory grin as he moved toward her, gun drawn. "Well, well," he called out. "Look who's come to join our party." Colton burst from the church doors, all strategy abandoned. "Emma, run!" William's attention snapped to Colton, his gun swinging around. Too late. Colton's bullet caught him in the chest, driving him backward. But the remaining gang members opened fire, their bullets finding Colton's already wounded body. He fell hard, his gun skittering across the frozen ground. William, wounded but alive, staggered to his feet. Blood stained his shirt black in the fading light as he advanced on Colton, drawing a wicked knife from his boot. "I want you to watch this," William snarled, turning toward Emma, who stood frozen in terror. The rifle shot cracked like breaking ice across the town. William jerked, a look of confusion crossing his face as a dark hole appeared in his forehead. He crumpled, dead before he hit the ground. Lucy stood at the end of the street, rifle still raised, Emma now safely behind her. Without hesitation, she swung the weapon toward the remaining outlaws, firing again. Her shot went wide, but the message was clear. The easy prey they'd expected had grown teeth. The remaining gang members, seeing their leader fall, lost their appetite for the fight. They retreated, mounting horses, disappearing back into the wilderness they'd emerged from. Lucy rushed to Colton, who lay motionless in the blood-stained snow. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Emma knelt beside him, small hands pressing against his wounds as she'd seen Lucy do. "Papa," she whispered, her voice rusty from disuse. "Papa, please." Emma's words, the first she had spoken since her mother's death, hung in the air like a prayer. Lucy froze, her heart catching at the sound of the child's voice after so many months of silence. Colton's eyes flickered open, focusing first on his daughter, then on Lucy. "You can shoot," he managed, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. "My father taught me," Lucy said, already tearing strips from her petticoat for bandages. "Remember?" "Remind me," Colton whispered, "not to underestimate you again." As Lucy worked to stem the bleeding, townsfolk began emerging from hiding places. Watching in silent wonder as the nurse they dismissed saved the sheriff many had feared. Deputy Hayes organized men to secure the town, others to fetch the doctor from the next settlement. Colton drifted in and out of consciousness, but each time his eyes opened, they found either Emma or Lucy, present, watchful, unwavering. Spring came late to Frost Hollow that year. The snow melted slowly, revealing the greening earth beneath like a secret gradually shared. In the main street, scaffolding surrounded the bank and other buildings damaged during what locals now called the Last Stand. At the cabin just outside town, Colton sat on the porch, his left arm still in a sling, a cane resting against his chair. The doctor had pulled 7 bullets from his body, each one a testament to his refusal to fall when Frost Hollow needed him most. Inside, Lucy's voice drifted through the open window as she helped Emma with her letters. The child spoke now, not often, but enough. Her laughter when it came reminded Colton of Hannah's. The investigation after the shootout had revealed everything. Wilson's conspiracy with the Blackwater gang, the silver deposit that would have made both men rich, the planned elimination of anyone who stood in their way. Colton's gaze drifted to the distant mountains, still snow-capped despite the warming air, the wilderness that had nearly claimed him, yet somehow, against all odds, had instead given him a second chance. The screen door opened, and Lucy stepped onto the porch, wiping flour from her hands onto her apron. "Sheriff Crawford's here to see you," she said. "From the territorial office." Colton nodded, straightening slightly as the official approached. The man was younger than Colton had expected, clearly uncomfortable with the task before him. "Sheriff Granger," Crawford began, removing his hat, "I've completed my review of the Blackwater incident." "And?" Colton prompted. "The territorial governor commends your actions in defense of Frost Hollow," Crawford continued formally. "However, given your injuries and the unorthodox methods employed, it's been decided that a change in leadership would be appropriate." Colton's expression remained impassive, though his hand tightened slightly on the arm of his chair. "I've been fired before," he said evenly, "usually with bullets, not words." Crawford shifted uncomfortably. "There is one alternative," the governor suggested. He reached into his coat, withdrawing a folded document and a small metal star. "Frost Hollow has grown enough to warrant a full-time deputy, someone who knows the town, understands its unique challenges." He held out the badge to Lucy, who had gone very still beside Colton. "Miss Montgomery," Crawford continued, "your actions during the incident demonstrated considerable courage and judgment. The governor believes Frost Hollow would benefit from your continued service." Lucy stared at the offered badge, then at Colton, whose face revealed nothing of his thoughts. "The choice is yours," he said quietly. Emma appeared in the doorway, watching with solemn eyes as Lucy slowly reached out and took the badge, its weight solid and real in her palm. "Frost Hollow is my home now," she said simply. "I'll serve it as best I can." Word spread through town like wildfire. A woman deputy, unheard of in any territory. Some men scoffed openly in the saloon, declaring they'd never take orders from a woman. Others remembered how she'd stood alone against the remaining Blackwater gang, how she'd saved their sheriff when no one else would stand with him. Old Mrs. Tanner, who'd lost 2 sons to outlaws over the years, brought a fresh-baked pie to the cabin. "About time we had someone with sense wearing a badge," she told Lucy. "Men are too quick to shoot. A woman thinks first." The miners, rough men who'd seen Lucy tend Colton's wounds in the street, nodded respectfully when she passed. They recognized a different kind of strength, not in the draw of a gun, but in the steady hands that had pulled 7 bullets from a dying man and refused to let him go. Later, as the spring sun set over the distant peaks, Colton and Lucy sat side by side on the porch steps, Emma asleep inside. Neither spoke for a long while, the comfortable silence of people who no longer needed words to understand each other. "I never thanked you," Colton finally said, "for saving my life, for saving Emma." Lucy smiled slightly. "You never needed to." Colton's hand found hers, calloused fingers entwining with her own. "I don't know what tomorrow brings," he said, his voice low and certain. "But I know we don't have to face it alone anymore." The last light caught the badge pinned to Lucy's dress, transforming it momentarily to gold. In Frost Hollow, winter had finally released its grip, and in its place, something new had taken root, as stubborn and resilient as the people who'd fought to protect it. Not just survival, but the promise of something more. Home.